This episode of the Beauty Industry podcast was brought to you by InSkin Cosmetics. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today my guest is Kathryn Moore. Kathryn has been a leading expert in the global spa industry for over 15 years now, with extensive knowledge of all aspects of the spa industry. Recognised for her creativity and out-of-the-box thinking when developing bespoke, high-end spa and wellness concepts for a broad spectrum of clients, Kathryn is a highly sought-after collaborator in the market today. During her time with MSpa overseeing more than 60 spas for minor hotels, Kathryn identified noticeable gaps in the industry. Her solution was to form Spa Connectors in 2015, offering exclusive training programs as well as recruitment solutions and business consultancy. In only a short time, Spa Connectors has developed a reputation for delivering innovative, personalised solutions to address the client's need, ensuring longevity and high performance for every spa business associated with Spa Connectors. Globally recognised brands such as Rosewood, Movenpick, Intercontinental and Mandara are just some of the names that Spa Connectors has been able to secure partnerships with under the helm of Kathryn. Kathryn's most recent venture involves creating the Hall of Wellness Awards, which is a globally reaching platform aimed for reward and recognition to the best of the industry. Here's Kathryn and I for Beauty Industry. Kathryn Moore, welcome to the Beauty Industry podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for featuring today. Kathryn, I would love to start at the very beginning of your career. Where did you make your way into the professional beauty industry?
It's a little bit of a long story, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I was studying business and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in restaurants and nightclubs in Melbourne, actually. It was started off in Perth, and loved that whole scene, loved creating restaurant concepts, nightclubs and so forth, but I spent a lot of time drinking too much and working crazy hours, and it wasn't really something I wanted to continue doing. Just from a health perspective, it wasn't great. I'd always been really interested in the beauty industry. In a sense, I would do my friends' hair and makeup for balls and socials and all sorts of things, and I was always sort of experimenting with what's the latest. I also had issues with my skin, so I was always trying to find what's the best thing that I could do to fix my skin and stop breakouts and so forth. So I was always kind of fascinated and into it. And then trying to work out what to do next, I had come across a couple of industry leaders here, Vanessa Gay, Vanessa Main, who are now really good friends of mine, and saw what they were doing in the industry globally and was like, wow, that could be super cool. And so I decided to do a beauty therapy diploma. I've never actually been a beauty therapist, but I did it so that I would have a background and an understanding from a therapist perspective, which actually has been really helpful for me, especially being able to relate to my therapist or the team members that I've had when I was running spas and salons and so forth. I finished that and started managing spas, starting in Melbourne, and then moved to Thailand. And the rest is history, basically. It's been a bit of a crazy 10 years or so, actually. It's probably coming up 15 years. But yeah, really, I've been in the right place at the right time and put my hand up for opportunities. And having my own business now for the last 5 years has really put me into sort of a different space. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Amazing. I think so often, people who are in leadership roles, or they kind of look at the beauty industry and go, oh, that is so easy. I'm just going to take over this business and run a little beauty salon with therapists. And, they get there and they panic because they're like, oh my goodness, this is so difficult. I guess you had the foresight prior to that to go, no, actually, I need to know the practicality of the role before I get there.
I think what we see in our industry is so many people wanting to step up and run a business, which is amazing. And they might have come from being a therapist, but now they're not having the expertise to be able to run a business, which is amazing what you're doing, and you're being able to help support them and give them the tools to run a business. And that's where I'm seeing a challenge, is that we sadly don't have a lot of all-round expertise in the industry or support for them. So yeah, that's really what I thought was required for my career. And I think I was more so interested in business, and I just happened to really love, spa and wellness and healing and beauty and all those sorts of things. So it sort of just ended up this way.
Amazing. Can you talk to me about the transition from Melbourne to Thailand? How does one do that? And then, the language barrier, the navigation, where do you even start?
It was a bit of a fluke, the whole thing, really. So I was engaged at the time, and my fiance got transferred to Thailand for his work. So I wasn't really sure whether I'd be able to work. Many expats in the spa industry weren't being employed. Usually they would spend money on locals in those sorts of roles. And bizarrely, and I'm a firm believer in everything's meant to be, I had been chasing MSpa for a few years about working overseas, and had always been sort of sending them emails and trying to work out like what was happening with them, and always sort of admired what they were doing. From a third-party spa management company perspective. And I got to Hua Hin, which is 2 hours out of Bangkok, where we lived. And funnily enough, a job came up through Spa Careers that was to look after 2 spas in Hua Hin. Spa Careers was Vanessa Gay's business at the time. It was a global recruitment business. It's not existing anymore. But I'd said to her, if you could find me a role, that would be amazing. And weirdly enough, this role popped up, and it was with MSpa looking after 2 of their spas. So I, got the job and started working across the 2 spas there, and going back and forth to Bangkok and so forth, so on. It was definitely a learning curve, because I'd come from running a spa at Hilton in Melbourne, where it was just all about the payroll, and it was all about just managing your expenses. Yes, it was. I was able to implement different initiatives and try to create a great experience, but you definitely can't do it in the same capacity as you could do it in Asia. And so I came, and you'd had so many staff, and you didn't have to worry about payroll. And really all you had to be worrying about was how to drive revenue, how to capture in-house guests, how to do your forecasts and budgets, how to differentiate yourself from the little 2-star massage place that has a massage for $5, $10. So it was a completely different business for me to run. And then also managing the team. I had a GM who was really great, and he sat me down and he was like, okay, here's a book on Thai culture and so forth. These are the things that you kind of really need to understand. If you want to make changes, this is the best way to do it. If you want to discipline people, this is the best way to do it. These are the things to look out for, which was really helpful. But yeah, I certainly had situations that I wasn't prepared for. There was one situation, and I always tell this story when I do my X Factor training for Spa Connectors, just about cultural differences and so forth. There's something in Thai culture where you aren't allowed to point to things with your feet. And that, fair enough too. And there was one day where we were doing yoga out on the lawn as a team, and I pointed to something with my foot, and I kind of like nudged one of my staff to say, hey, we had a client or something, where to go. And I used my foot to get her attention, which obviously was really wrong. And I mean, obviously I meant no harm or anything, but it just didn't even cross my mind that it was the wrong thing to do. And she came up to me after, and she said, couldn't Kathryn, the way that you did that was that was not okay. And I was absolutely mortified, because I certainly didn't mean to offend her or upset her. And it was a really big, eye-opening experience for me, because just small things that are not important to us was a big thing for her. And I'm so glad that she brought it up, because I probably would have carried on, unintentionally doing things that might have upset someone. But yeah, that really made me seriously think, okay, you've got to watch these cultural differences, and you've got to make sure, like, wherever you go in the world and work, these are the most important things, just in terms of creating relationships, but also in terms of business. If you don't understand the culture of whomever you're doing business with, you essentially are not going to get the best out of that relationship. So yeah, it's always been very important for me to make sure that I respect other people's cultures and what's important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Valuable lessons that you've learned along the way, I'm sure. A lot of people would be listening to your story and thinking, oh my goodness, I run one spa and it's difficult enough. How did you have the time and energy and just capacity to run multiple spas at any one time?
I think I probably didn't really stop to think about it. I was on this path of just, I wanted to take on more and more and more, and I kept putting my hand up to do more and more. And I was actually talking to someone about this last night, when I was working for Minor, and when I was in the corporate office running MSpa. I had 65 spas around the world, and I honestly, you could not get me out of that office or get me off my laptop or get me off a plane. I was just absolutely addicted to the whole experience, the adrenaline of getting new deals, the adrenaline of creating a new spa concept, opening up a new spa. I think I opened 28 spas or something during my time with Minor, which was, an amazing experience. But it was just about really putting the right processes in place. And the company was so strong. And I always talk about this, talk about my time with Minor, because I wouldn't be able to be doing what I'm doing if it hadn't been for those years of experience with them. Every quarter, we had to present the results of all of the spas or all of the hotels to the ExCom and all of the other GMs. And, if you didn't know what was going on in each one of your properties, you would be, yes, it wouldn't be pleasant. So you got to the point where you knew every single spa back to front, and you'd have to put in, obviously, processes to work out, how to track all of the performance of each property and so on. And so we had, you know, good systems and so on. But yeah, it was very much about looking at priorities and which ones are the ones that are generating the most revenue and profit, and, you know, putting more time into those and so on. But yeah, it was honestly about having a good team that you could rely on as well. I mean, in the corporate office, I had a great team that there was regional people that looked after the spas, and yeah, it definitely was a full on time. But yeah, one that I, you know, fondly look back on. I certainly don't have any regrets about going out on my own, but yeah, it was definitely a wild ride.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, that's what I was going to ask you, was you've been with Spa Connectors for 5 years now.
Nearly 5, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was that moment like when you thought perhaps I could do this on my own?
So actually how it all came about was I continually had challenges with staff when I was with Minor. And what we had to do was track the turnaway revenue in our properties on a monthly basis. So we would do it daily, obviously, but I needed to look at it on a monthly basis. And we saw that we were turning away so much revenue because we didn't have enough therapists. And I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for not having enough therapists, but the reasoning was that, you know, GMs would put a freeze on hiring, or the visa process would take too long. We would have staff and they would resign and they'd give 30 days notice, but it would take 3 months to get a new person. And we knew these things, but yet we weren't fixing the process. So we would go for months without having enough people, which essentially then we would have clients wanting, or guests wanting treatments and not getting them. And so we could track how much revenue we were losing. And in some instances, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that I was the one getting in trouble for this on a monthly basis. And I didn't have, I had enough influence, but I didn't have control over the hiring in every single property. And so I came up with an idea of how, and it wasn't a brand new idea. There's a lot of companies like Mandara, etc., that do training and then placements. But I really looked at how we could source local talent, train them to our menus and our standards, and then have them ready to go onto the properties. That would mean that the property had to pay for the therapist training, which it worked out about $1,000 for a couple of months training. It meant that the therapist would then be able to arrive on property, be ready to go, start generating revenue straight away. Because usually when you just hire someone, they have to come in and be trained up on property. You've got to wait then for someone else to be available. If you're really busy and already short of staff, then it's obviously challenging to find that person to be able to train up the new staff. So you usually have a few months of downtime where a new staff member is really not generating enough revenue or productive enough. So I thought, okay, this is a brilliant idea. Let's implement this. We can do it. We can partner with existing training schools that are out there, or we can do it ourselves. We've got the expertise. Blah blah blah. It was accepted within the company that we would do this, but I had to go and convince every GM to spend the money on these individuals. I couldn't get the funding to be able to just set it all up and then force the GMs to pay the money for these therapists. And honestly, I think it was after my 5th or 6th property that I was trying to convince that I really kind of lost the will to argue and try and, I guess, lobby for this to work. And I thought, you know what, it's probably time that I do this myself. And also, Minor is just such an incubator for entrepreneurs. Like, if you've got even, and I say this all the time, if you've got even a vague entrepreneurial bone in your body and you work for Minor, like you wouldn't be staying there for years and years and years. Like, you have to get out there and do something yourself. They seriously set you up to be able to go and do your own thing. So I just started thinking about this because it wasn't just our company that had all of these challenges. It was absolutely every spa and salon and everyone in the whole world had the same challenges. So I thought, okay, how can I do this myself? And so I just started working on the plan to then start Spa Connectors. And it's very much around the recruitment and training side of things, and looking at how we can develop talent, and not just from a recruitment and placement perspective, but how can we look at individuals in the industry and give them tools to essentially grow their careers and, be more than just a therapist, or be more than, whatever it is that they've been, be more than a manager, step into other roles, go from being a manager to being an owner of their own place or whatever. How do we actually make these people realize that they can be something else? And what do we need to do to be able to give that to them? And so, yeah, the path that we're in now, has been a little bit convoluted, but I think we're finding our way, and recruitment is incredibly difficult. Our industry, I feel, doesn't necessarily understand how to utilize recruitment very well. Whereas you might look at an industry like a finance or tech or something like that. It's the norm to utilize a recruitment company to find your people and so forth. But for us, we're not quite there. So for us, it has been a real learning curve to try and work out, how best can we support the industry? How best can we find the right people? And also, sometimes it's not really the nicest industry to be in. So attracting people to come in and then stay is a challenge. And it's kind of then led us into what we're doing now with these awards, and trying to get people to share their stories of why they love the industry, why they think they should be recognised, why the industry needs to be supported by governments and so forth, or even recognised by governments. So we're in an interesting place. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I do think it's all of us working together to really try and get some better recognition, whether it's for the people or for the industry.
Coming up after the break, Kathryn shares with us the challenges of recruitment and training in the professional beauty industry, and gives us the how, what, where, when and why on her latest venture, the Hall of Wellness Awards. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, while we're on the subject of incredible women in our industry, I would love to share a story of another incredible industry figure. The story of a woman with a dream, her garage, a pair of heels and some flats. Maria Enacoccioloni only ever wanted one thing: to create her own range of candles. In the spring of September 2007, in her garage of her family home, Maria lit the flame of a dream bigger than anyone, including she, could have ever imagined: InSkin Cosmetics. InSkin Cosmetics launched with one brand, no clients, and a vision to return to the heart and soul of the Australian beauty industry. In her flats, Maria was the warehouse manager, pick and pack customer care, operations and logistics. In heels, she was sales, marketing and education. In October of 2007, InSkin Cosmetics launched to the trade in Sydney and Melbourne, and soon had its first 30 partners. Maria's kids became the part-time pick and pack team, and her husband CFO by night, working a full-time corporate job by day. Within 6 months, InSkin Cosmetics welcomed Imogen C, and 2 brands proved too many for the garage. It was off to InSkin's first ever official head office, and hello to new additions: InSkin LED, Cosmeti Peel microdermabrasion and Skin Inject clinical and retail skin needling devices. In 2009, Maria added to InSkin's portfolio when she created her first ever range, and while it wasn't candles, it was destined to become Australia's fastest growing and #1 cosmetical skincare range, O Cosmetics. Australian made, owned, loved and internet protected to ensure skin health journeys happen face to face with an expert and designed specifically to fight skin aging, correct serious skin conditions and ultimately result in skin health, youth and confidence. In 2017, Maria, in collaboration with Nicola Quinn, created and launched Ginger and Me, a new skincare range born to address modern skin concerns with a touch of luxury and, in all honesty, after too many cocktails on a rooftop bar in Hong Kong. Ginger and Me is dedicated to the sisterhood, with a focus on mindfulness, empowerment, and skin health results, including a signature professional mindfulness treatment featuring an in-treatment guided meditation. In 2020, InSkin Cosmetics has transformed from a beauty distributor to a leading medical aesthetic distributor and is home to a powerhouse portfolio of skin health products and devices, including O Cosmetics, Ginger and Me, Dermapen World, Emergency, Viora Devices, Photon Smart, CryoPen, and Skin DNA. The InSkin Cosmetics family, though now bigger than ever and still growing, continues to go from strength to strength, anchored by the same founding 8 core values Maria created in her garage: integrity, customer-centric, transparency, the honeypot, personal responsibility, gratitude, family, and growth. To this day, these values are taught to each new team member during induction by Maria personally. Maria and InSkin Cosmetics may have left the garage over 10 years ago, but this CEO, director, creator, and leader still wears both heels and flats. It just depends on the day. And that candle range, well, she's still working on it. Contact team at inskincosmetics.com, and that's cosmetics with a D, for more information on exclusive offers launching August 1st. Thank you so much to the team at InSkin for making today's episode possible. And now, back to Kathryn. Yeah, absolutely. I know there's going to be a lot of business owners and managers listening along to that, just nodding, going, yes, I've been the technician and now I'm the business owner or I'm the manager. And while I've had to learn how to manage a team, marketing, advertising, back end of the website, finance, I've also had to learn how to recruit and interview and then attract and retain staff, which is just so much all in its own. So it seems like a no-brainer to hand that over to people who do know what they're doing and who do that every single day and who are the specialists in that area. Yeah. But then too, it's like, well, what if I spend all this money on training them and then they leave me,
They leave, yeah. So, or I spend money on recruiting someone and they're not good. Or, exactly. How do I trust that this other person knows what it is that I need? Look, I guess it's the same as if you pay for a training course on business to help you've got to believe that that course is going to give you the tools that you need to be a better business person. I think it's a general acceptance that if you spend money on educating yourself, full stop, you are going to improve in anything you do. And I feel like perhaps we lack that a little bit within the industry. It's getting better, and in some countries people take more I guess pride in their qualifications and what they do, but it's not really necessarily the norm for people to continue to keep investing in themselves and their education. And as a business owner, if you want to be the best at what you do, you need those sorts of tools, right? It's either you invest in yourself and to be better at it, or you invest in support to be able to drive your business. So one of the two. If you do nothing, you'll end up in the same situation that you're in now, and your business potentially is not going to succeed as well as it could. So it's a challenging one, and I think I spend a lot of time trying to educate owners, spa managers, owners of hotels, GMs, owners of clinics, doctors that own clinics, all sorts of things that, if you spend the right money on the right people, then your business can really succeed. But, a lot of people don't know what to look for. They're not sure. So Yeah, it's certainly challenging. And the only thing that I can say is that, you know, as a consultant or someone that's providing support to the industry, we need to be as reputable, as professional, deliver what you say that you're going to deliver, because, you know, the more that you get consultants, and it's not just from a business perspective, it's even from a social media perspective or a marketing perspective, or what have you, sales. The more that people have terrible experiences, recruitment, whatever it is, training, the more that people have terrible experiences, then that impacts the view of using services like all of us have. And yeah, it's a challenge. We need to be changing that mindset, and we need to be making sure that we're ethical. I think one interesting thing we're going to see now, because so many senior spa people and salon people, etc., are out of jobs, we're going to see a lot more consultants coming out on the market. And whilst that's great, I'm all for people like jumping in and, you know, having a go at things. We really need people out there that know what it is that they're doing and that have the necessary experience to be able to help these businesses, because otherwise it then does impact the ones that are out there that have been doing it for a long time and have, you know, the right experience, or, you know, have put in those hard yards.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And it's always about doing your due diligence. You know, I mean, we were talking about recruitment before and the list of questions and qualifications just so that we can start a trade test. I mean, you know, we put an advertisement out, we phone qualify them, then we get them in, then we might think about it, then we get them in for a trade test. You know, I say that we should be doing that for everything. This is coaches, consultants, people who are going to spend with for education, products and brands and machinery that we're going to bring into our business. This shouldn't just be for who we're going to hire on our team, but for everything. And look into people and, you know, ask past clients and past students or past users, like, what was your experience with them? Because sometimes people are very good at, you know, talking about themselves on
interviewing
social
well.
and interviewing well. And then the practicality of that doesn't happen. I want to ask you about your first partnership going back to, you know, almost 5 years ago now. How did you secure that, and how did that make you feel?
Actually, our first client was a Saudi client who actually we still have today. The project's still ongoing. It was a massive, massive client. It's a 7-story women's wellness centre. Wow. And we got it because we got the lead. It came in through our website, I think, and then we pitched it, and we got it actually. And then simultaneously we did a training program for Lux Resorts in the Maldives, where it was someone who was running the spas that I'd worked with in the industry for a long time, and he needed 10 therapists recruited in Bali and trained up in Bali and then sent over to him. So we did that at the same time. So yeah, they were the first ones. I think, you know, really our success, if you can call it success, has really been word of mouth. And most of the leads that we get really have come from people that I've worked with in the industry over the years. A lot of GMs, a lot of owners of hotels, just people recommending, you know, if you need something done with spa or whatever, you've got to call Kathryn. And that's been amazing. But it also brings a lot of pressure with it, because it means that every single thing that you put out there has to be like exceptional. Our industry is small. And I was just going to touch on it with your last question. You know, it's great for us to do reference checks. It's great for us to, you know, find out about other people and what they're doing and so forth. But our industry is also very small, and it's also very subjective in terms of what people think is quality or is the right way of doing business and so forth. So I'm often very wary about, hearing stories about other people's businesses from other people in the industry, because it's not necessarily fair to judge people based on other people's stories. So I like to take a bit of a balanced view on people and who we work with and different partnerships. And even from a recruitment perspective, we are always doing reference checks from multiple people, not just the ones that they give to us to check. But it also is subjective in terms of what people are looking for. So many of our clients would rather have the right attitude versus the technical expertise. In some instances, it's more so the technical and years of experience than the attitude. So it's just interesting to obviously understand the client's needs, and then also when you're recruiting on a global scale, being able to meet people doing. Now, obviously, with all the closure of airports and so forth, it's really been very challenging, and being able to move people around and having to recruit within the same spaces or the same pool of talent is challenging also, because I don't like to take from one location, because I don't think it's fair. If people are spending a lot of time and energy on bringing someone into their property and training them up and what have you, then for me to then go and place them somewhere else. Yeah, it's fun. Look, honestly, you're going to get attrition and you're going to have people wanting new experiences and so forth. But, I do struggle with the fact that I know how hard it is to bring people in and get them to a certain level. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question, our industry is an interesting one. I would like it if we were all a little bit more compassionate towards each other, because I think that certainly would help us. And I can see more and more collaboration happening, especially since Corona has happened. But yeah, being able to support one another and being able to recommend other people based on your experience with them and so forth, I think is really important.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And two, back to what you were saying before about doing your due diligence, time goes on and people mature. So if you worked with somebody, like I've had many people phone me for a reference and I haven't worked with them for 6 or 7 years, and they've said, oh, what was she like when you were managing her? And I said, oh, look, well, this is what she was like, but that was 6-7 years ago. So it could be very, very different to what she's doing today or how she's behaving. And
totally agree.
You can never
100%.
hold that behaviour, can you?
Yeah. I mean, if I think about the sort of manager I was, 5-10 years ago, I was terrible.
Yeah, me too.
I would go crazy at things. I would yell and scream. I'd had no idea how to manage my emotions or know what on earth I'm doing. I mean, I'm certainly far from perfect now, but I think age certainly helps. But I've done a lot of work on trying to make sure that I am a better leader or a better manager. So yeah, to judge someone based on who they were years ago, I think that's a great point. We really need to be a little bit more compassionate in general, I think.
Absolutely. Do you have a project that you're most proud of to date?
Oh, there's so many. I guess these awards that we're doing right now, I'm pretty proud of how they've been executed so far. I'm proud of all of the spas that we've created in the time that I've had Spa Connectors. I guess for me, honestly, the small things like being able to place a therapist and then see them grow and thrive, for me is a bit more of a win. I've got a couple of therapists that constantly update me on where they're going, and I see them, working their way up and getting promotions, and they'll come and ask me, what should I do next? And da-da-da. And I love that. I think that's part of why I really started Spa Connectors. Wasn't necessarily about creating spas, and the consulting side of things has been great, and I love doing it, but it is very much around the development of the people in the industry, and I think for me that's the most exciting. We're working on a few different projects now just in terms of recruitment, but I would say for me it's just being able to see people thrive and really improve themselves or get better opportunities, and I'd like to be able to do more of that. The only challenge is that I've got to pay the bills and I've got to pay my staff, and what pays the bills is the consulting, and trying to get ourselves into a place where recruitment can be easier to execute and manage, and also cost effective for the client. But yeah, I would say, there's not one thing that sticks out. These awards are exciting because being able to recognise the individuals, being able to create this scholarship fund where we're raising money from the sponsors to be able to then upskill individuals, especially now where there's so many of them out of jobs or on leave without pay or just not knowing what's going to happen, for them to be able to have this fund that they can, put their hand up and say, hey, I think that I deserve to do this course, and then we're able to pay for it. I mean, that I think would be an incredible experience. I'm excited about that. The challenge that we face at the moment is that obviously everyone globally is in quite a terrible financial situation. So raising money is very hard right now. And I knew that would be the case, but I mean we'll carry on regardless. But in subsequent years, I think we'll be able to get this fund going and find other ways of being able to contribute to the fund as well. Ideally, find ongoing sponsors that want to help, because I think there are so many people that just don't have the cash in our industry to be able to invest in themselves. And it's not the responsibility of the employer to pay for their training and their upskilling. I mean, it'd be a nice thing if they could, but it's not the responsibility of the employer to pay for it. So being able to help them and give them the funding, for me, that's what excites me.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to ask you about the Hall of Wellness Awards because, I mean, you've got Spa Connectors, you're doing recruitment and training and consulting, and now we're in the middle of a pandemic. Why awards?
So we, over the last 4 months, obviously during this pandemic, really saw that obviously there's no business coming in fast. No one needs consulting, training or recruitment during a pandemic. We had a couple of clients that we were still doing some recruitment for, but quite honestly, not enough money to be able to sustain my team. And I really didn't want to let them go. They've been with me for a long time. I've also spent a lot of time in terms of training them up so that they can deliver projects and training and so forth. We decided that whilst our colleagues in the industry were really working on helping businesses and owners through this pandemic, we would help the people on the ground. We would help the individuals that might be out of work, that might be facing uncertainty in their careers. And we really, I mean, we've always been about knowing what's going on the ground, knowing the people. Our database is big and it's great, and it has a lot of owners and operators and so forth, but it also has a lot of these therapists through to managers and so forth, people who essentially needed our support. So we thought, okay, what can we do to help these guys get through this time? And we decided to first create a Facebook group. And what could we do in the Facebook group? Okay, let's share content, let's share training. There were so many webinars going on. We were sharing webinars, we were sharing tools and tips of what they can be doing during this time. We helped them with their CVs. We had a hotline where they could call and talk to any of us. We did mock interviews, all sorts of things just to try and help them. I mean, obviously we couldn't give them jobs. Anytime we've been seeing any jobs being posted on LinkedIn or anything by anyone, we're sharing them. We know that it's not a time where we're going to be able to make money off these things. It's like, okay, how can we get all of these jobs in front of these people and just help people? Because quite honestly, from a global perspective, there are people that are just sitting there without anything, not knowing what to do next, and not necessarily having any government support. Australia, UK are very lucky because the government has been able to help support with some payments and so forth. But most other countries are not doing anything like that, and there are people that are left without anything. So we were thinking, okay, well, look, what can we do? And I'd always been interested in doing some sort of awards, and it was because there's two reasons. One, I have always wanted to recognise individuals. I think that we have so many great awards programs out there. I'm a judge on a few of them. But mostly they recognise businesses, which is fantastic. Businesses need that. But I wanted to have something where it was about the individuals and giving us an opportunity to actually showcase the careers of these people and what's gone into these careers to get them to where they are. If you're the best microblader in the region, or if you're the global spa therapist, or if you're the manager of the year, or what have you, how did you get to that, and why are you doing it, and what's your passion, and sharing those stories I think is important, and recognizing the fact that you put in a lot of time and energy. It might be education, it might be just experience, might be both, but being able to showcase what those people have done to get there, and to recognize them and say, hey, hang on, we salute you. You're not just a commodity that when, all hell breaks loose in our industry during a pandemic, that we're just like, oh, well, we can let go of you now and we'll just get some more therapists later, or we'll just get another manager later, or we'll just get a cheaper manager, because it doesn't really matter who's running the spa or the salon or whatever, right? I just really, that upsets me, because a lot of people have put time into their careers. So being able to genuinely recognize them and have a judging process that is serious, a judging process that they have to go through a lot of steps to show why they are the best. But then for them, that's something that they can be proud of, and that they can say, I was, spa therapist of the year in 2020. This is on my CV. This can then help them, and we can then share their stories from a social media perspective and really get it out there. So I think that's important. I think it's important for the industry as well, because people need to see why the industry is good and why people would want to be in our industry, and then also show governments that there's more to the industry than just it's a little hobby for, some housewife to, oh, I just decided I want to be a makeup artist and I'm doing it on the side and it's just a hobby, right? We're contributing to the global economy better than a lot of industries, and yet we're still not taken seriously. Looking at the UK recently and what happened there with them not opening spas and salons, and the Parliament laughing at our industry and thinking it's a joke, that infuriates me. Because if you look at what is something like $30 billion that the industry contributes to the UK economy, hello, that's not a small feat there. They are really offering jobs and taxes. So that upsets me. And I think if we are able to share the stories of the people and get that out there, that could help, right? Yeah. It's not going to change the world, but it could help. Secondly, I also, from a recruitment and business perspective, I want to see who are the good people out there. I want to see who's doing new stuff. I mean, I'm following loads of people on Instagram. I'm seeing how people are positioning themselves. I want us to see how we can help, I guess, evolve the industry. And it's not just about just hiring a therapist and they're on a 9 to 5 set salary. It's about saying, do we now have to start looking at these individuals as their own identity, their own brand, and how do they then work in with your particular business? Because it's clearly not working. We're not attracting people that want to come into our industry to work in a salon waxing people from 9 till 5, getting paid minimum wage. That's not working. But people want to be a celebrity facialist. People want to be a famous makeup artist or brow technician or what have you. We have to now look at what are we doing with positioning people and giving them the chance to shine and then be rewarded, but also to be able to help the current sector. And it's kind of thinking outside the box and saying, okay, well, we're not doing things in the same way that we've always done. Maybe the standard high street salon is dead now. Maybe it's all about having these individuals that are freelancers that then come together and work in certain spaces. I don't know the answer, but we've got to be thinking about this because it's clearly not working in a lot of spaces the way, we do things the way that we've always done it and, expect different results. That's crazy. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to do the awards. And I also want people in the industry, if these nominees, etc., to also see the brands that are supporting and to know that they're the brands that care about the industry and care about the people. And I think that's a big thing for these brands because these are the future decision makers that we're recognising here. They're also the current decision makers, but they're also the future. So for them to understand that right now, when it's needed the most, these other brands are stepping up and saying, hey, I know it's a tough time right now, but we are going to put our hand in our pocket and help support you. And I think it's so important right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I was so, touched when we became a qualified industry partner with the Hall of Wellness, because that's exactly what we're about. It's about that recognition and that reward and being really progressive in the industry and not doing what we've always done, because we will be stagnant and, other industries surpass us. But what I love most about the Hall of Wellness is that we're going to understand the personalities and the character profiles behind the winners, because so many awards that I've attended, you go to a ceremony and it's all glitz and glam and you get your photo at the media wall and then you're like, okay, they won and now what? And you never hear anything else about them, and if you're aspiring to be the next category winner, you're kind of like, well, how did they get it? But you don't want to ask them how they got it because that might be seen as competition. So I really love that you guys are shining that kind of light on the behind the scenes of the applications too.
Yeah. And I think we approached you because we can see that you have the same values as us, and we wanted to partner with people that were going to get what we're trying to do and help get it out to as many people as possible. The nominees that we've had so far, it's crazy since we opened. And actually the breakdown's quite interesting. There's been about 50% that are nominated and 50% that are nominating others. And it's really, really cool to see. We need a little bit more traction in US and Australia, so hopefully this podcast can help. But for me, it's about just working with our ambassadors and our partners and really getting them to share the message. And once we start getting these interviews out from the nominees, and once their videos, because they have to do a video when they nominate themselves, one of the stages of the judging process is that they do a video of themselves as to why they should win, and it needs to be creative. And I think we will get some really cool content that can be shared. I'm excited to see the personalities of people and the motivation, behind why they want to win or why they're in the industry. And all that. I think that's exciting, and us understanding those mindsets are going to help us to be able to grow and develop the industry.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned before there's high expectations on everything that you do, I can imagine, because you're such a global spa guru, I'm going to title you. What can we expect from the Hall of Wellness? I mean, I mentioned before, obviously we can't do big events anymore because of the pandemic and social distancing. I know you've got so many different categories for applicants to apply to. What else should we be looking out for?
So the event where we will announce the winners is going to be a virtual event, which will be held over, we're thinking it will be about 12 hours, and it will be over different time zones, and there'll be varying things that happen. And we've got a really cool platform that we're working with to be able to do different things, whether it's some entertainment, whether it's industry people speaking, whether it's sponsors doing their slots, and then the varying regions would have their awards being announced, and then the global awards would be at the very end. But really allowing a lot of access to people throughout the industry to come and watch what's going on and to pick and choose who they want to see and hear from different people around the world, keeping in mind that our theme or our mission is very much around giving back to the therapists and the people on the ground, helping them educate themselves further. So the theme will very much be around that. But we want to do something quite different. Everyone's saying to me, "Oh, but you should do an event." And I was like, well, you know what? I just feel like it's very hard right now to get people to fly somewhere, and I'm sure everyone wants to catch up because we all miss each other very much, and it would be a really great event. But I don't, any money that we raise, I really don't want to spend it on an event. I'd like to spend it on this scholarship fund. So I'd like it to go back into the people. So to put on an event, even if we're charging tickets and things like that, it'd be much more useful for us to be able to put it back into the fund. And then also, people regionally can get together if they want to watch the awards and so forth. So we could do some really cool things where, people can get together, and, sponsors could sponsor the different events. And, there's a lot of things that we're working on to try and see how we can get the communities together and then live stream it and just get some collaboration and excitement going. But yeah, for now, we're really just working on onboarding our sponsors, getting the traction that we need from a media perspective, making sure that the word's out there, that people understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. At the same time, we've got a few projects coming through, which is good to see from a Spa Connectors perspective. But I would say, looking at the current climate, for us, our focus is just very much around the awards, and will be for the next 6 months. For me, the industry is so small, and I really like to make sure that everything that we put out there is quality. So it does kind of mean that I'm a little bit anal about things and micromanage perhaps a little bit too much. But I think it's important because, this industry, if you, if you muck up and don't deliver, it's very quick for people to talk about it, sadly, which I think we also shouldn't be doing. But yeah, so for us, it's really about making sure that we do these awards and we do it well. And again, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing with awards. I've been involved in helping sell awards with Professional Beauty and World Spa and Wellness, and I've been a judge in quite a few awards, but I've got really no idea how to run awards. So I'm kind of winging it. But, I think so far we're doing okay.
Well, it's pivoting crossed during a pandemic, right? That key word that's been thrown around.
Look, totally. And I spent, many a day at the start of this pandemic thinking, like, what on earth do? I don't want to let my staff go. I just, how do I get us through and put us in a place where we're going to be okay? And I mean, it will be touch and go for sure. Like everyone else in the industry that is a supporting business, it's about looking at what can you do. Is it creating memberships? Is it automating support? Is it like, what can you do to be able to help people out there? And at the end of the day, it's our clients, the operators, that need to be able to spend that money on you and trust that you're going to be able to deliver for them. So yeah, it's challenging times. But yeah, I think the key is obviously just keep hustling and hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have our complete support, and we will definitely be doing a live stream watch party for the live awards. But in the meantime, everybody on this podcast is going to hear me talk about the awards all the time. And you heard from Kathryn just there, Australia and US. And I know this is a globally reaching podcast, so I'm going to do a shout out to everybody. Make sure you enter these awards. Kathryn, thank you so much for featuring on our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great being able to share and to reminisce over things. But no, I really appreciate the support that you're giving us. Really, we won't be successful with this event if we don't have the support of our industry people. And so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning into today's conversation. How incredible is Kathryn and the initiative of herself and her team and what they've created over at the Hall of Wellness Awards. If you are the best of the best or you want to be known as the best, then I so wholeheartedly encourage you to click through the link in our show notes and nominate yourself or somebody else who is just as impressive for entry. Imagine being rewarded and recognised for your hard work in the hardest year of business we have ever had to date. Wouldn't that just be the icing of the cake? If you'd like to follow along with the magic that is Spa Connectors, you can do so over at Spa Connectors across the gram and at h.o.w awards for more details on the awards themselves. If you've listened and loved, then make sure you share and tag us at Beauty Industry and of course myself at Tamara Shaw Reid to watch all of the behind the scenes of beauty goodness. Until next time, stay connected.